Okay, I think we're live. And I'm not seeing any indication of a chat channel showing up, so we may not have any questions coming in. We'll see what happens. What I'm seeing, I'm not seeing chat room at all. So let's see if we can fix that. Okay, not happening. All right, it says we're live now, so let's just go ahead. This is the live launch party for Lorna Hart's debut novel, Moonpath. Was officially released in paperback form today, and Lorna actually received her author copies of it in the post this morning. So this was kind of a very interesting day, and it's one of the first times we've had the release date and the author copies show up pretty much at the same time. So as a bit of introduction here, my name is Michael Hurd. I'm the owner and publisher of Lineage Independent Publishing in Marriottsville, Maryland. Lorna is actually in the United Kingdom. Let's see, I've forgotten my geography, Lorna. What's the name of the village you're in again? It's Kington, right?
It's Kington. It's in the county of Herefordshire on the Welsh border.
So it's over on the west side of England.
West Midlands, yeah.
West Midlands, okay, all right. It's kind of away from a lot of things, right?
It's very rural and quiet and underpopulated, and that's how I like it.
so
you have a lot of apple orchards in Herefordshire and a lot of farms.
Lovely, lovely. Up in Yorkshire, where I used to live, the sheep outnumbered the people, I think.
I think there's quite a lot of sheep here too.
So anyway, but congratulations on finally releasing your novel, Moonpath. I know that it's been about 10 years in the making, and I'm going to ask you right up front, what took you so long?
Life intervened. I had the idea in 1969, and it went in the back of my mind in the filing cabinet, and I didn't do anything with it, but I never forgot my little character. And then when I retired at 60, I started writing the book then. And then I went to live in Portugal for 5 years, and I was too busy and enjoying a lot of my life over there to think about writing. Just before I came back to England, I started writing it again, and I came back to England, and lockdown gave me the opportunity to really buckle down and finish it, which I never thought of it as actually finishing. Do you know what I mean? It had taken so many years, but with lockdown, I thought, right now, I'm going to finish it. This is my good excuse to finish it.
Mm-hmm. And we had some back and forth in the beginning about about the content of the book, if I remember correctly. You told a wonderful story, but what was one of the things that we worked on together to get the story correct?
I think it was being consistent about things, because I'd started it so long ago. I think there was some inconsistencies in it that I probably couldn't see, but you could.
Mm-hmm.
That was very helpful to iron those out. Plus, I don't have any novelist experience, so it was keeping the pace up and keeping the story interesting all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
I could. The first chapters, I think, were so interesting because they were a bit exotic that it was kind of difficult to keep the pace going all the way through with the changes that the character encounters. Some of them weren't quite so excited, so keeping the excitement going right to the end. Also, I never actually thought of how to have a conclusion to the book, and I only came up with that idea right at the very last minute.
Mm-hmm.
So all the time I was worrying, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to finish it? Because I couldn't think of anything for a long time. And then woke up with the idea one morning. I get a lot of my ideas at night. When I wake up in the morning, I sit there and I woke up with the idea one morning. I get a lot of my ideas at night. I sit there and woke up with the idea one morning. I get a lot of my ideas at night.
Right.
I sit there and woke up with the idea one morning. I get a lot of my ideas at night.
Okay, I've had to fix something there. I've actually figured out we are getting comments in the chat channel. So I can, I have to look at my laptop at the same time I'm talking to you. So it's kind of a bit of a back and forth, and I don't have a really good way of posting them. So we do have a live chat after all. So let's see who's here. Of course, we have my wife Sandy is here watching us. Pat is here. Pat, who writes under the pen name G.B. Carmichael. Martin Radford. All right. Do you know a Martin Radford?
No.
Okay. So I don't know who he is either. I think he might have been the person that has corresponded with me about a book idea. Anyway, so moving right along. So you've already covered why it took you so long to write the book. Your main character, Millie, is very intriguing. All right. I loved the way her character developed over time. What was the motivation, or what was the motivation for you to use her as the main character, the main female character?
Well, I think I said to you before, we were in Beirut in the Lebanon in 1969, which was sort of between wars, when it was peaceful there, and we were working in the Casino de Liban, and we used to go into the city centre on our days off and have coffee in the coffee shops in the city centre of Hamra. And often we'd see beggar children, and we got to know them, and they'd come and ask us for money, and they were cheeky, cheeky little Arabs, you might say. And this one day, a little girl came and stood next to my knee. She was about 3, and she was tiny and didn't look Arab, and had goldenly coloured blonde hair and green eyes. And she obviously didn't like begging because she looked embarrassed at the age of 3. And I just wanted to take her home with me, and rescue her from that life. But of course I couldn't. And she just went into my brain and stayed there, and I never forgot her. And I used to think of her now and again if something reminded me, and I'd think, what would have happened to her? Why was she there? Why was her life? She didn't look like she belonged there. And while we were there, one of the dancers was murdered.
Right.
So that's sort of, I put those two facts together and created a story.
Okay.
And in the story, she is reunited with her British family, but it doesn't always run smoothly.
Right.
And it's not till she's an adult, really, almost an adult, and she finds her father, that she finds any sort of relationship with a parent. Right. But that's giving a bit too much away, really.
Not really, because it's how your character develops, and you're just talking about character development there, and all the twists and turns of how she grows from basically an unwitting child to a fairly sophisticated young adult. The storyline was compelling to me, and some of the visual images that you painted. I mean, I know a little bit about Beirut myself, not a lot, but enough to know that at one time it was the banking center for the Middle East, and there was at one time lots of money there, and then Cyprus and the UK and France and Canada, they all factor into the story. So it's very, very interesting. So, so let's move on to another question. I'm trying to watch two screens at once here. I know Rebecca has commented. She said, "Just fantastic that your book is finally out," and I agree with her. So, that's a good thing right there. And so anyway, how do you feel now that you're finally a published author?
Great. It's like a lifetime's achievement, really. Even if nobody ever buys it, I've got the book and
Right.
I finished it. And after all those years of sort of, it's like a bit like an elephant's pregnancy, isn't it? Really? It's taken a long time from conception to birth. But yeah, very proud actually. I've surprised myself with, I'm not blowing my own trumpet or anything, but I've surprised myself that I could put a plot together in that way, and develop the character. I didn't think myself capable of it before. So it's been really good.
Okay. So, I mean, you're neither one of us are spring chickens anymore. I mean, we're not, what advice would you give to somebody?
Boy next to me, Mike.
I'm sorry?
You're a boy next to me.
Not by much. What advice would you give to somebody in, say, their 20s or 30s that had a book in their head?
Do something about it. I left it way too long. I mean, I don't regret that, and maybe it was the right time for me in the right place and everything like that. But if you've got something that's your heart desire, don't let life put you off the path of doing what it is you're meant to do, if that's what you're meant to do. Because I let other things get in between me and what I wanted to do. Because really, being a writer at this stage of my life is something I can do, but my heart's desire was to be an artist. And life intervened to stop me doing that. Parents and then family and working on the stage, traveling all over, I couldn't take art materials with me. So I've always regretted that I let events push me off the path that I would think I was supposed to go down. But I can do it now, and that's what's important. And I enjoy writing. I can get lost in writing for hours at a time. It's that enjoyable.
Well, let's
do it if you don't enjoy it, but if you enjoy it, you should make time for it.
Right. Even if it's just writing something, in a diary or something like that, I would tell people to go ahead and do that. Write for yourself if you don't write for anybody else.
Well, one of the things that helped me be motivated was joining a group of a writing group, just ordinary people who do writing. And we call ourselves the Scribblers, and we meet once a month. And we have to write a little 500 word essay each month, and we all read it and comment and things like that. And I found that incredibly useful because you've got to concentrate. A beginning, a middle, and an end in 500 words is quite a discipline. And I think that's a useful exercise, is to write something every day.
Okay. So
doesn't matter what it is.
I'm sorry?
It could be a description of some scenery, or a description of a journey on a bus, or anything. It can be anything. It's exercises those writing muscles.
Right. We've got a question from one of our viewers, from Rebecca Allen Bruce, who writes under the pen name Rebecca Conity Bruce. She's asking about the cover. She says, "How does the cover relate to the book?"
Well, it reoccurs several times during the story, and in the prologue, you first see her traveling under the light of the moon, and the moon is making a path on the sea, And you know how that optical illusion you get if you're traveling and the moon is in the sky, it seems to be following you.
Mm-hmm.
And she sees the moon over the sea several times during the story, which is the reason. And also one of the where she's rescued from the Lebanon and taken to her family, she's taken on a boat that goes over the sea. So that's also the reason for the boat on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's pertinent to the story, but it's just as window dressing, really. It's not the whole be all and end all of the story. It's just
Mm-hmm.
creates a nice, slightly mysterious atmosphere, I think.
Okay. So let's see. We had another couple of questions here. Let me go back up and scroll back and look. Pat asks, are there more manuscripts in your head that we can look forward to?
Possibly. I have got a couple of ideas that I'm working on. They're proving to be more difficult than I expected, but yes, I have got several ideas.
Okay.
One is almost based on personal experience, and it's quite a larger than life character that came into my life, and it's a fictionalized version of that story. Whether it'll turn out to be worth reading, I do not know, but
Okay.
that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Okay. So let's talk about fictionalized characters for a second. In your short biography that's on the back of the book, you talk about a nomadic lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do in your previous lives?
When I was 17, it's a long story how I got into it, but I got a job with a young magician who had just turned professional, and we were like two kind of little lost children. You know, we weren't show busy. He was just a kid from Preston who just left school, but he had a very good act and a very good act for television. He was very good at card tricks, and he had a lot of birds and doves and things. And so we traveled around together for a couple of years. And then we got married and had my daughter, and we went straight to Las Vegas when she was 2 weeks old. And we gradually built the act up to be bigger and bigger and bigger until we ended up in Reno many years later, finishing the act with a disappearing car trick, which was quite spectacular. But we had a lot of animals and dogs and a cat, and at one point we had 2 cheetah cubs for about a year, but
Cheetah cubs, as in the African cat, the spotted African cats.
Yeah. But they didn't. We only had one as a big finish, but they didn't look happy, and we had 4 Samoyed dogs as our finishing thing before. And I don't know if you know Samoyed dogs. They call them the smiling dogs, and they love people, and they love showing off, and they love the theatre. They love being in the act, and people loved them. So we ended up never using the cheetah for very long, and we gave them 2 cheetahs to a wildlife park, and they were hard work to look after, very hard work.
Yeah.
But I had when they were little cubs, and I used to take the girl one who was very tame. I used to take her out in the car with me, and she would be walking up and down in the back of the car, station wagon, and people would be going past us and nearly driving off the road with shock.
Oh wow!
It was good. I loved it.
So some of that Las Vegas experience comes out in the storyline of the book. If I remember some of the later chapters as Millie is nearing adulthood, and it's obvious as I read through that that you were putting some of those life experiences into fiction, and I thought it was very well done.
We worked in Las Vegas about 3 or 4 times. We started off in the Dunes Hotel, which I talk about in the book because it had a great big statue of like an Arab man with a turban on. I loved that statue to bits, and when I heard they knocked it all down and knocked the hotel down, I was heartbroken. But we did a year in Paris, in the Lido in Paris. So I got some of my Paris knowledge from that. We didn't really get much. I think we went up the Eiffel Tower and a couple of other things, but we were too busy working to do very much. But yeah, we worked in the Lido.
Okay. So we've got another question that just came in from Martin. He asks, hold on. He asks, do you write as you go along, or is there a structure or algorithm you use, like the 3-stage 7-scene method?
No, I don't even know what that is. I just write it a scene at a time, and I let one scene lead me to the next scene, to the next scene. And it wasn't until I was getting near the end I thought I have actually got to plan the ending, because I wanted it to be dramatic enough to be like you would have in a show. You know, your big trick at the finale is it's got to be good. It's got to be a bit exciting. So, but all the way through the book, I just let it take me, and it almost took me itself. It was like the story was writing itself in a lot of cases. So no, I don't have any. I don't even know what that algorithm thing is.
Yeah, it's. I think you and I are both what they call pantsers. We write by the seat of our pants. The story goes where the story goes.
Well, it always seemed to work for me. I based a lot of it on characters that I knew. Like I knew characters that the woman that looks after Millie when she's a little girl. I knew women like that. Not exactly the same, but I knew them, and I knew a lot of the things. Like I describe at one point a village shop, which is a butcher's, and I remember going past a butcher's exactly like that and being horrified at all the flies landing on the meat, you know, and there was just some little boys. So I've used real facts, but not based it on actual people. Just color that I remember from being there, you know, wherever I was.
Okay, we've got another question that came in. That's from Rebecca. She says, in the first few paragraphs I read, you seem to have the knack for describing scenes, making the reader feel as though they can picture it in their mind as they read. Is it from life experiences, or have you taken a writing course?
No, I've never taken a writing course. I just visualize things and then try to write down what I visualized. You know, those are memories for me in a lot of cases that I embellish the memories. But I always think you've got to, when I read a book and people don't describe their character or set the scene in somewhere at the beginning of a chapter and I have to visualize it for myself, I get kind of cross. So I like things to be just sort of put on a plate for me a little bit when I'm reading, and so I do that in my own writing in order to, I think once people have visualized a person, they keep it in the back of their mind, and so it becomes a real character for them. Whereas if you leave it to them to make up their own mind about what the character looks like, they will do it, but it's harder for them to hang on to that, you know.
Right.
So I think you flesh out a character with a bit of description.
And I think that's probably one of the hardest thing for an author to do is to build that descriptive language to describe a character or describe a scene. I know one of my favorite critics told me that I needed to add more embroidery to some of the scenes, because one of my books, you said they got married, the end. And it says, well, what was the bride wearing? What was the buffet that they had for their meal? Give me the color. Paint. Use the color paintbrush, not the old black and white television. And I've always remembered that feedback and try to take it to heart. And you, on the other hand, there were only a couple of places where I had to coach you through, adding stuff to scenes because the images were so vivid. I could feel myself in the marketplaces in Tripoli. I could feel myself in Paris or in French-speaking Canada. I could feel all of that.
I've never been to Canada. I've never been there. I had to use internet research to get any idea of what it's like. And talking to some people who've been there and lived there, but I've never been there myself. So
no, you did a very good job.
Oh, thank you. There was one other place that I haven't been to. I can't remember where it was now in the book.
Oh well.
Was
it Cyprus? Was it Cyprus, or have you been to Cyprus?
No, never been to Cyprus.
Okay, that's, and again, the descriptions that you have there were pretty vivid too. So Lisa Talbot, another one of our authors, asks, would you want to go back and see if the young girl, Millie's character, was still in Beirut?
I would love to, but when you think about it, she's now in her 50s, probably.
At least.
Older. Who knows? You'd never find anybody if you went back to Beirut now, because they've had so many wars since then. Who would be alive? The addresses are not there anymore. The places are not there anymore. You'd never find it. But I would love to know what's happened to her. Yeah, I would. I have a feeling it probably wasn't very good if she had to start off begging at the age of 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to go well, is it? I don't think.
I would imagine she might have ended up in one of the refugee camps.
If she were lucky, probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Pat asks a question, going back to Rebecca's question, is the book in part biographical?
No.
Autobiographical?
No, not at all. It uses places I've been and things that I've observed, but it isn't about anything autobiographical at all. No. Okay.
All right. Another question from Rebecca. Rebecca says it's hard to build the emotional part of characters in the scene. She says you do a great job. Did you find it difficult to do that? To get the emotional part of the character?
I did, and I wrote nearly the whole book, and then I went back and read it and said to myself, I've got to add more emotion. So I did go back in and put that in deliberately, because I'm not good at that, if you know what I mean. It doesn't come easily to me.
Right.
And I knew that I had to make her have emotions to be real.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're a stoic sort of person like I am, I internalize a lot of stuff, and I think she does as well in the story. But at the same time, you've got to have some sort of emotion, The one thing that I use is the dreams about snakes.
Mm-hmm.
I had those terrifying dreams when I was a kid for a different reason. A friend of mine, a little boy, he was very into reptiles and snakes, and his mum took us to London Zoo, and we spent all our time in the reptile house. And I was kind of horrified because I didn't like all these snakes and things, and I had dreams for years after that. So, but I used that in the story, that events gave her these bad dreams.
Right.
Too.
And I think we all write, even when you're writing about things that happened years and years ago, or even in the distant past, we still tend to apply some of our own life experiences to our storylines.
Yeah.
So, but so anyway, does anybody else have any questions? We have 6 people watching, which is a good thing. And if anybody else has any questions for Lorna, I'd like them to put them in the chat. Let me ask you a question. When I did finally got the book formatted and back to you, were you surprised at its length?
Yes, and I'm surprised how heavy it is too. I mean, it would make a good exercise weight. It's so heavy and big.
Because it's what, 440 pages?
I'm not sure. I'll need to look it up. 449.
449. So then that, of course, that includes, you know, the obligatory stuff at the beginning and the end, but still, no, that's it. As I read it, I didn't feel like I had just finished reading a 440-page book.
Well, when I went back and read it a few times, I thought I was worrying that maybe some of the middle bit of it, which is less exciting, maybe it went on too long and maybe I should go back and cut it out. But when I went back and read it, it didn't go on all that long really before it went on to some other thing, and so it changed, you know, things kept changing for her. So I didn't have to do that, but I didn't have to go back and cut things out. But if I were writing a book again, I might try and make it a bit shorter because it's quite a brick.
So let's see. We've got a couple more questions that have come in. Who is your preferred author?
Oh, I have lots of favorite ones, but my very, very, very favorite one is Lee Childs. I love the Reacher stories, and I also like, oh God, I can't remember the name of the author. He writes, is it Robert Goddard? He writes about an American detective who drinks. They've had a television series made out of it. I love his books too.
Okay.
But I used to read a lot more sort of detective-y, thriller-y type books.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't appeal to me so much anymore. I like books about people and rather perhaps gentler and not too many gory murders. You know, I used to read books about serial killers and things like that. I can't read them anymore. I must be getting soft in my old age.
So let's see. We've got another question that just came in. It's a comment and then a question. It says, "Dreaming of snakes means rebirth. Do you think finally getting your book out was a rebirth of the artistic new you coming to life?"
Quite possibly. I didn't know that about snakes. I thought it was something else entirely. But yeah, why not? It is a kind of rebirth. It's
okay.
I mean, you're exposing yourself in a way, aren't you, to write a book? You know, you're leaving yourself open to people saying it's rubbish and that sort of thing. I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm sure there'll be some people who don't like it. That's sod's law, isn't it? Can't please all of the people all of the time.
So Kevin Heads, another one of another author in England who writes Michael the Michael Saxon series, I think it is, and lots of really good poetry. He said, "What inspired you to write a book?" I think we've already answered that, but he apparently just joined the broadcast a few minutes ago. So so let's revisit that question. What didn't inspire you? I mean,
well, it was seeing this little girl in the market in Hammer in 1969, a little beggar child, and I had a little girl of a similar age. She was about 4 or 5 at the time. This little girl was a bit younger, and I thought, you know, my daughter had a kind of difficult life with us all traveling all the time, but compared to this poor little beggar child, she was living in clover, and I wanted to take her home with us. But of course I couldn't. But she was such an unusual little child. She just stayed in my mind, and I don't know why. I just had to write about her. But of course, it took years and years and years.
Because that was 1969, you said before that you had the magazine.
That's right, yeah. And I didn't do any writing at all when I was on the stage. And I was doing that until I was 40. And then I got divorced and I had to go and work in an office. So I didn't have any spare time then. So it wasn't till I retired that I had enough time to do things like writing and painting, which I've done both of.
So we've got some more comments here. Rebecca came back and says the author in you has finally come out. Great job, and she hopes that you continue to write. Let's see. My wife has answered the question. She says, "Who is your preferred writer?" And she said, "All of the lineage writers."
Well, I should have said that to be tactful, shouldn't I? But I was being truthful. Of all the writers that I've ever read, my very, very favorite is Lee Childs. I love it.
But it's interesting in that there are 5 of us, that write under the Lineage imprint, and we all write different books.
Oh, absolutely.
Just the diversity of the types and subject matter that we all write about. We're up to close to 20 books now, with several more being ready to come out. And just the adding you to the mix has brought another dimension to it. On the international storytelling capability that you did with Moonpath. So I think it's fantastic. So for a debut novel, I hope that this one will get some attention somewhere.
Oh, I hope so too. Well, I've got all my friends and family are there waving me on, so encouraging me, so hopefully. I don't know how these things work, do they work by word of mouth, or I just don't know. It's in the lap of the gods, isn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, word of mouth is one aspect of, situations like this where we're doing live broadcasts, people see them after the fact, and just social media engagement, all tend to help people find our works. And I think that all 5 of us are of the mindset that we like our hobby, our craft, well enough that we do it because of our love for writing, more so than we do it because we want to be on the New York Times bestseller list. But it would sure help.
Yes, I suppose everybody fosters that dream in the back of their mind, but somehow or other it seems to be something that takes you over. You know what I mean? And you just have to do it. It's like people who love to exercise, or people who love to run, or people who love to do something else. It's a kind of almost like a need to express yourself in words, know. And I don't really worry about, I'm not sure I have enough money to live on. I have enough money for what I need. So if it's a bestseller, I'll probably give the money to my kids. Do you know what I mean? So it's not the money from me at all. But the success of it and people liking it, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? That would be great.
Yeah, Lisa just made an interesting observation. She said writing becomes a drug.
What?
She said writing becomes a drug.
It does, yes, it is a drug. Once I have to be careful not to start doing it when I've got an appointment or something, because I'll forget it. I just get sort of off in my own little world. She's right, it is a bit of a drug.
So, and of course, we've already answered Pat's question. She asked if this was the first book you've ever written, and we've answered that yes. It is your debut novel. So, and you were talking about what was the author that wrote about the drinking detective? What was that author's name again?
Which one?
The author that wrote about the detective that drank.
Oh God, I've probably got one in my bookshelf here.
Anyway, Sandy said that
Oh,
wasn't
and
that what?
I
Go ahead.
love John le Carre books as well.
Okay, okay. But wasn't that the other one what the Columbo TV series was based on?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So, Lisa, again, backing up to Lisa's comment, she says, writing becomes a drug. And then Martin Radford says, yeah, it's better than physical exercise. But I found out that if I don't get the physical exercise, I can't write, because some of my most creative times is when I'm out running or hiking or bicycling. I get these ideas, swirling in my head.
I'm a very unathletic person and always have been. So, yeah, writing suits me down to the ground. It's the exercise of the mind and not the body. So, yeah, that's me.
Okay, so Kevin asked a question. He said he asked Lisa the same question a while back. The question is, when you are writing, do you feel that you are being told the story, or is it all planned in advance?
I feel like somebody else is dictating it to me to a degree. There's some other part of my brain, maybe. That it's not like I'm sitting there thinking of what to say. The characters seem to write themselves. And, I think about a memory of a place and think, where I want to set that particular scene, and thinking about where it was and what it was like, it just helps the flow. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like greasing the wheels. I don't know. I've never formulated it in my mind. I just sort of do it.
Mm-hmm. And I've talked to a lot of other authors who, when they write, they would basically diagram the whole story out, a flowchart of the story, or have a storyboard with yellow post-it notes all over the place, with character names and relationships and all that stuff. I find that you get so into the details, you lose track of writing, and
One thing I did do eventually is I made a note of characters' names, because I've got the world's worst memory. I have done ever since I was a little girl. I'm not getting worse as I get older. It's just always been bad, and I don't remember sub-characters' names,
Mm-hmm.
So I have started writing them down, especially with this next book I'm doing. I'm writing them down as I create them.
Right.
But didn't do that to start with, and I think that got me into a lot of trouble about halfway through. But other than that, I don't plan it out. I don't plan where the next stage is going to. I just sort of let it lead me to it,
Mm-hmm.
When she goes on the stage and then she has an accident, and that sends her off into another direction. But if I had been planning that, I don't think I would have planned it that way. Do you know what I mean? It just kind of happened. The story wrote itself in some ways.
Okay. And we've had several questions and comments pop up here in the past couple of minutes. Kevin has said that he has the same experience. I'm guessing he's talking about basically the story goes where it goes and it tends to write itself. Lisa, on the other hand, says that she's never had that feeling. She says that when she writes, she says that sentences seem to just come out of the top of her head.
All right.
Okay. Martin has made the comment that he tried, doing the planning route, and he says he just uses a spreadsheet for names now, and that's kind of what I had to do with my current work in progress. Was I had to come up with a spreadsheet of names and places, and because there were so many things going on that after a while it just got muddied. I would have to say, okay, where was this character and what happened to him? So I had to keep track of that so I wouldn't mess things up. So we lost our signal for a moment there.
Yeah.
All right, hang on just a second. All right, I think it's stabilized. All right. So Lisa asked, do you write notes as you go along? And I think you already answered that, but go ahead and answer it.
Only of names of characters. That's all. I just kept so that I didn't have to think, oh, what was that person's name or whatever. I could just look in the notes. I only had like one sheet of paper with some names on, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do that until I was well past the halfway mark.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I realized I needed to be clear in my mind what people's names were.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, you pointed out that one character's name was not typically Lebanese, and so I had to do search and replace to replace his name. You know, so that made it easier to just replace all the names. But I had to remember what the names were, and that didn't come naturally for me with my terrible memory.
Right. Well, we also had the other name in Canada where we changed it, you know, from an Anglo name to a French name.
That's right, yeah, which was a good addition. I was watching a program yesterday a couple of days ago actually, about the railways in Canada, and one of the characters was called, one of the people that the presenter met was called Antoine.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, thank you, Mike.
Okay, so let's see. We've got, let's see. Lisa says she just makes everything up as she goes along. Pat said that what she had to do was created a family tree on Ancestry to follow one of her novellas in Canongate to Cannon Shell. You know, so we all use our own little techniques. But let's talk technology for a second. When you write, are you writing straight onto a computer into a word processing program like Word, or are you writing things out longhand and then typing it?
No, I can't do that. I type straight into Word.
Okay, so you're basically editing as you go while you're typing.
I write, I suppose, probably maybe 5, 6 more chapters, and then I'll go back and edit them and go through them and rewrite them and add bits, take bits out. But I do it in blocks of chapters so that I've got a flow going on.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I do it. And then when I was getting to I got right to the end of it, I printed it all out, because to see it actually on paper, it gives you another dimension and makes you see things that are wrong, picks things out that don't look right when they're actually on the printed page. And then I went back and edited it again.
Okay.
But I did that the once.
So Kevin asks another question. He said, if you were to write in one genre only, which one would you choose?
In one what?
Genre.
Oh. That's a difficult one. I don't know how my book fits into a genre. You said it was a family saga, didn't you?
Yes.
I think books about people, yeah, families and relationships, that sort of thing. I don't think I could. I don't think I've got the skills to do a thriller or anything like that. You know, it's a different sort of skill set, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
There's no romance to speak of in my book, so I wouldn't like to do a romance. I wouldn't. I don't know. No, I don't think I could do. I'd need to write about people and families and that sort of thing.
Okay. Let's see. Martin just made an observation. He said he uses Google Writer for one of his many tools, and then transfers that to LibreOffice.
All right.
So that's one approach. You know, me, for example, I write, you know, in Microsoft Word, and continue in that way. I know that Lisa is, you know, like a keyboardist. Rebecca's the same way, and then Pat likes to write in longhand first. So we all have our own techniques to put our stories together.
Well, I was a typist for many years, working in an office to support my kids, so I did a lot of typing then. So I guess I'm comfortable typing straight into Word. Not that I use all the right fingers, mind you.
Yeah, Lisa said she's using Libra too. Martin says he likes stuff that's free, that he doesn't have to pay for it. So, and I tend to agree with that. If it works and it's free, why not?
Well, I wouldn't know what the benefits are. What's different about it? You know, does it have something that's useful for an author?
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's tools that I'm not familiar with. So they may, I'm so comfortable with Word, with the Microsoft suite, Office suite, that it just works for me. So, but anyway, does anybody else have any questions before we wrap things up? We've had a lot of good comments, a lot of good questions here. Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind, I'm sorry, Lorna, if you wouldn't mind holding up the copy of your book again, as close to the camera as you can get it without blurring it up. We spent the last hour talking about Lorna Hart's debut novel, Moonpath, which is available in both e-reader formats and paperback as of today. Certainly give some consideration to using your local independent bookstore for ordering. They should have access to the Ingram Spark catalog, at least here in the States, and an equivalent over in Europe and the United Kingdom. And let's hope people enjoy reading it as much as I enjoyed helping you get it out there. And
well, I'm very grateful to Mike and grateful to Lisa for sending me in your direction, because I think it would still be sitting in my computer now if it wasn't for you and Lisa.
Well, you're welcome. And everybody's is passing on their good lucks and congratulations for the debut. You have my big applause for finally getting it out there. I know that we've worked long and hard to make it happen.
Absolutely, yes. You were invaluable to me, Mike. I didn't think I couldn't have done it without you, because you just helped me see the way around the things that I was doing wrong. And
you're welcome. You're welcome. And it's been a pleasure. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you'll take the step and pick up Lorna's book. At least
it is.
Yes, it is. It's real.
It is. It exists.
So, all right, so we will sign off, I hope.
Goodbye, all.
All right, bye-bye.